In this week's news, Google restructures into Alphabet, a new holding company, Apple prepares WatchOS 2, and Samsung's imminent Galaxy Note launch.
All this and more on episode 5 this week. Welcome to Bandwidth Blog On Air.
Welcome to Bandwidth Blog On Air, the weekly podcast of bandwidthblog.com. Breaking news this week is that Google has restructured into a new holding company called Alphabet.
Yes, that's right. In somewhat surprising news for investors, Google is going to restructure the whole way the company is put together, with this Alphabet being the holding company at the top. So the founders of Google, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, are now going to be the CEO of this new holding company, Alphabet. And underneath that is going to be all the subsidiary companies. So the old Google as we knew it is going to be headed up by Sundar Pichai. I hope I'm saying that correctly, who was the senior vice president of Google beforehand. Now, this Google is going to still have the core businesses that Google was founded upon. So it's going to be Google Search, Android, Chrome, and all the best known parts of Google. And the other subsidiaries are now going to fall under Alphabet with different leadership.
Well, this is certainly news that took a lot of people by surprise, come out Monday morning. Now, from what we know about Alphabet is that Google's traditional divisions are now going to be broken up and separated, and Alphabet is going to function as more of an umbrella holding company. And what this means, and what a lot of people are saying, is that now projects like Google Ventures, Calico, Nest, Google X, Google Capital are all going to be on the same page as Google and receive equal attention. What do you think, Theunis, this means for some of Google's more special projects like the self-driving car?
Well, actually, I'm not so sure that they're all going to receive equal attention. I think the reasoning behind it is to basically pull together Google's efforts into one big umbrella so that investors have a better idea of where the funding is going and where the revenue is coming from. Because at this stage, Google is a pretty big black box in terms of, the different companies and the different projects within those companies. Something like Google Glass, for example, which Google has touted as the next step in the evolution of smart technology, hasn't gone anywhere really, and it's been an experimental product for a couple of years. So investors always ask the question, when are they going to start seeing revenue from this product? And Google is always thinking about, not just tomorrow or next year, they're thinking the long game. And they would still put a lot of money into research and development of this product. So the whole point is that investors will know that all products and projects under a certain subsidiary is only meant for research and development purposes, or perhaps only for their venture business, or perhaps for their humanitarian kind of internet businesses that is not going to turn out any revenue within the next decade or two.
So now, from this, do you think we can expect that Google's online services are going to become far more streamlined as a result? Because we've seen some services like Gmail, for example, which has been under Google for years, run quite efficiently. And then we've seen YouTube, which was acquired by Google. And YouTube as a service has had its own CEO. Do you think there's going to be a corporate restructuring as well that'll see all these services sort of conglomerated under the same banner now?
Yes, that's exactly what we're going to see. So all those services, internet services and mobile services, are going to fall under the Google moniker. So Android, Gmail, all the apps, Maps is another important one, will all be part of the company Google.
Well, I think that's great news for anyone interested in Google as a company, well, now Alphabet as a company, and Google's services. But I do believe that Google actually isn't the first to trademark Alphabet.
News actually just broke today that BMW are asking a lot of questions about this trademark because they have, for some reason or another, trademarked the name Alphabet in Germany. We don't know why. We've never seen them. We've never seen them use it. We don't know why. We don't know what their plans are with that trademark, and it's only trademarked in Germany, which is interesting. So we don't know what's going to happen there, if that's going to go to court even. Now on to one of Google's biggest competitors. Apple is preparing the newest version of WatchOS.
Yes, Apple have been working on WatchOS 2 for a while. It's been in the preview beta stage. for a period of a few weeks now, and we're expecting Apple to officially launch WatchOS 2 at the September event, where we are likely to see 2 new iPhones. Now, WatchOS 2 is bringing 2 big new improvements to the Apple Watch, which I would argue should have been there in the beginning. WatchOS 2 is expected to bring the app logic of Apple Watch apps to the device itself, whereas previously it would run on an iPhone and be transmitted to the watch via Bluetooth. And we've seen a lot of people complaining about the length of time sometimes and the lag that you can experience while Bluetooth streams the app logic to the wristwatch. And secondly, the next major thing that's going to come up is that third-party developers now have access to all of the watch's sensors. So we can expect some interesting new apps to come out of that as well. The third development, which is seemingly more trivial but will be more exciting to a lot of people, will be the multitude of new faces that are coming to the Apple Watch, which are going to give people an even greater amount of customizability in personalizing their Apple Watch.
Other than the second generation of the watch operating system, are we expecting perhaps a new watch to launch as well?
I think, in all honesty, a new Apple Watch at this stage is unlikely. I think we're going to be stuck with the present model for some time. But what I can tell you is that earlier this year in June, there was a leak revealing Apple's plans for the next Apple Watch, the Apple Watch 2, which at this stage I'd imagine is actually fairly unsurprising. I'd expect that they would be developing a new Apple Watch. But what came out of that, which was quite interesting, is that the next Apple Watch might even feature a more expensive model than the Apple Watch Edition, which infamously costs about $10,000 US. We're expecting to see a model somewhere north of that, an even greater figure. And at the moment, we can't quite identify what materials it's going to be made of, but present speculation pinpoints titanium, palladium, or platinum, which kind of heightens the anticipation that we're going to see an even more expensive model at the top end. What we do know, which I think is an interesting choice, is that the next Apple Watch, the Apple Watch 2, isn't going to benefit from a larger battery. They're going to retain the same battery size. So that means in the long run, we're likely not to see any great improvements in the next Apple Watch in terms of performance. It could be more of a stylistic upgrade. In news surrounding other highly anticipated products, tomorrow is going to see the release of a new Samsung product, and it is widely anticipated that tomorrow, being the 13th of August, is going to see the release of the next Galaxy Note, the Galaxy Note 5.
Not only that, but we're also expecting Samsung's first round smartwatch, which we're expecting to be called the Gear A. Now, in regards to the Galaxy Note 5, I don't want to go into the leaked specs too much because we've spoken about that before, but what I do want to ask you is, where do you think this device is aimed now? It created the market segment, but now it's not unique in any way or form anymore. With the advent of the iPhone 6 Plus, now we're also expecting Samsung to launch a Galaxy S6 Edge Plus, so it'll be more or less the same size as the Note 5. So where do you think Samsung stands with their phablets?
I think that's a brilliant question, and I think it's one which largely we'll only really find out about tomorrow, at least in terms of Samsung's PR campaign. But I think the Note 5 is really going to be a reactionary device. I think it's going to be a reaction against the success of a larger size iPhone in the form of the iPhone 6, not so much the 6 Plus. I think the Note 5 is forever going to be sort of the top tier of Samsung's range. So I think they're going to sort of reposition the Note into more business territory, into more high-end consumer professional category. I also think that the Note 5 is going to be for a consumer who's not quite sold on the idea of a tablet. As a product category, the Note has always defined phablet territory, and I think it's forever going to sit there, and it's going to be for consumers who need the portability and power of a tablet but prefer a more phone-sized device. And I think it's going to become an intersection between those two sort of realms. With the Gear A smartwatch, I think it's going to be quite an interesting product to see because we've never really seen Samsung unveil a round smartwatch before. And I want to ask you something. I want to ask you, do you think that a smartwatch necessarily need be round? Because quite frankly, I don't mind the idea of a more square display. If I were to spend my money on a smartwatch, I would want to maximize that display space and show all information and apps that it possibly can. Do you think there is really a need for smartwatches to emulate a typical analog watch?
I actually think that's a question that a lot of people are asking. And I think that the answer is going to be very subjective, different strokes for different folks. I mean, a lot of people questioned, for example, the reasoning behind having a square or a rectangular Apple Watch, because they pitched it as being a fashion accessory more than, this brilliant piece of technology on your wrist. So we are seeing a lot of more manufacturers going the route of a round smartwatch because, I mean, in my opinion, that's what it should be first, is a watch. And I think having this unsightly thing on your wrist is probably not what most people want at this stage.
Review Spotlight, where we discuss our thoughts on the latest review devices to reach our hands. Well, we've got an interesting review spotlight this week, and in many ways it's a direct head-to-head competition because I am still using the Huawei Talkband B2, and Theunis, you are now using the Jawbone UP2.
I am, and it's actually quite an interesting comparison, these two devices, because I think they are in some ways very, very similar, but in other ways they're quite different. For example, the UP2 is primarily a fitness tracker. So it doesn't have a screen like the Huawei Talkband has. So the experience of using it is quite a bit different. So it does have a touch sensor on the front and 3 little lights basically to tell you what it's doing at any given point in time. And you can double tap that to change whatever it's doing. But all of the activity tracking is done on the device, but it's synced to your phone, and I think that's primarily where the big difference is. So you interact with the UP2 on your phone and not on the fitness tracker itself.
Now, let's get this out of the way very quickly because it's a huge point about Jawbone, is that the Huawei Talkband B2 actually can use the Jawbone Up app as its tracking service. Now, when you get the Talkband B2, you have to download the Huawei fitness app to sort of configure everything and set it up. But you can track your analytics in the Up app, which says something, I think, about the platform that Jawbone have built. Now, I found with the Talkband B2 that the tracking elements of it are surprisingly accurate. I've actually really enjoyed using it to calculate my steps taken and track my sleep hours. How have you found the UP2 in practice?
The UP2 is definitely the most accurate fitness tracker I've ever used. I haven't used the Talkband like you have, but it could just compare to everything that I've used before and actually compare to everything that's come from Jawbone before. It's so accurate. And what makes it so compelling is actually the sleep tracking. The sleep tracking is actually the most accurate you can find on any wearable at the moment. And I think that says a lot about the way their software integrates with the app. I mean, I think that's perhaps, even though you can use the app with the Talkband, I don't think that native functionality is integrated into that functionality very well.
The obvious pro, I think, of buying the Talkband B2, beyond it functioning as an earpiece, which we'll get to in a second, is that it comes with a screen. And it's really easy just to turn it on and off and quickly glance at your stats and then forget about it until you want to take another look at it. Now, do you think that a fitness tracker is better equipped with a screen? I personally have a Jawbone UP24 myself, and I love the accuracy of it. I enjoy using it, but I always have lamented that I need to pull my smartphone out of my pocket, launch the app, get it to sync across, and then check out my stats, where with the Talkband B2, it's basically a swipe away on my wrist. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there we differ. The lack of a screen is not a problem for me in that it's not really a smartwatch. It's tailor-made to do fitness tracking, and it's also a lot smaller than anything that has a screen, so I find it a lot less obtrusive.
All right, so we differ on that, but another question I want to put to you is, now, do you think a fitness tracker should serve only as a fitness tracker? Because we've got something here like the Talkband B2, which does 2 different functions, in my view, quite well. It functions as a Bluetooth earpiece and as a fitness tracker, and it's beyond a few little niggles trying to change the device from one mode to another, clicking that central piece out. It does both tasks quite well. Do you think there's room for a fitness tracker or generally a wrist-worn wearable to vary in 2 different roles, or would you rather see a product that directly performs one task really well?
I do think there is a definite market for standalone fitness trackers because I think because of their size, their portability, and their ease of use, there is definitely a market for that. I mean, I myself would rather have a full-on smartwatch that is still very comfortable on my wrist, but using the UP2, it's just completely kind of changed my mind in how useful a fitness tracker is, and that if you want a dedicated fitness tracker, you should get one, because I also think price-wise, they might be a little bit more competitive than something that doesn't only do one thing and one thing very well.
That's all for this week's episode of Bandwidth Blog On Air. Thank you very much for joining us on episode 5.
If you have any questions or anything you'd like us to discuss, don't hesitate to contact us at editor@bandwidthblog.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week for episode 6 of Bandwidth Blog On Air.
You've been listening to Bandwidth Blog On Air, the weekly podcast of bandwidthblog.com.